Hey, what is up, friends? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Larry and this is Your Own Adventure. In today's video, we'll be talking about beginner mountain biking. I'll be picking up In today's video, we will start a series on how to mountain bike, not only for beginners, but for anyone who might feel like an outsider in this elite world of MTB. Maybe you've been riding for 10 years, or maybe you just purchased your first Huffy, but whichever you are, I'll be cracking into some core fundamentals that will help you thrive in this lifestyle. First, a disclaimer. If you are looking for a skills tutorial or wheelie video, I'm sorry to say, this isn't it. Literally anyone else can tell you how to wheelie, and I surely don't have the title. Instead, I'll be covering topics that stretch across the field of mountain biking, from what to wear to nutrition and everything in between. Well, whatever I can fit in this video, but maybe there'll be more. So let's get started. For now, I'll discuss 5 topics and cover each one in more detail throughout the video. For reference, each of these topics can have an entire thesis or video written about them, so we're just scratching the surface here. Let's get started with our topics. Don't let the bike keep you from trying the sport. First and foremost, if you've just stumbled upon a Seth's Bike Hacks video and you are frothing on MTB, go out and rent a bike before you buy a high-end mountain bike. This option offers the easiest availability and the least amount of financial risk. Okay, so if you don't want to rent a bike, you'll have 2 basic options: a hardtail or full suspension. Typically, your terrain will dictate what you can and should ride. The term hardtail means a bike with no suspension on the back, but a spring or air fork on the front. The term full suspension means a bike with suspension on the fork and rear wheel. Simply put, if you live somewhere with really rocky mountainous terrain, you'll probably need a full suspension. If you live somewhere moderately flat with some hills, you could get away with a hardtail. Here's a quick breakdown. Hardtails cover the entire range of riding from beginner to expert, which means you can buy a hardtail for $299 and up to $2,099. Full suspension bikes aren't frequently offered in the beginner market and usually start at least $3,000. Here's why. Since a hardtail is a less complex bike, it will be cheaper and typically have better components stock per price, like brakes, shifters, and suspension forks. The full suspension is completely opposite, and since it's a much more complex bike with more advanced design, it means the market for it, advanced riders, typically don't need entry-level options, and in turn, the manufacturer puts higher-end parts on the bike, leading to a bigger price gap between hardtail mountain bikes and full suspension. Once you understand what you need, it's very much up to you as a rider and your finances to make the decision of what bike to purchase. Just know that a $500 bike will ride just as fast as a $5,000 bike depending on the rider. It is also true that you'll likely need to do much more upgrading and tinkering with a $500 bike to feel completely fulfilled, as opposed to purchasing a higher end bike right away and not having to worry about tinkering or upgrading. But in the end, choose a bike and ride it. It's that simple. Now let's talk lingo. Do you ride enduro, downhill, cross country, free ride, slopestyle, or trail? How the heck am I supposed to keep up with all these names and where do they come from? Well, I'm here to help, and it's easier if you put them into 2 categories: cross country and everything else, pretty much. That's not a joke, but it really kind of is, so let's crack into it. Cross country or downhill is basically all you really need to know. Everything else on the list falls under the term downhill because they are all gravity-fed riding, just subcategories of the term. Trail riding is somewhere in between, but we will discuss that last. Think of it like this. Mountain biking started on a mountain and expanded from there. Going downhill was the basis of it all. Then came racing, and that's where everything else got complicated. Cross country is its own category. It's the most practical for the everyday Joe or Jess because it's simply the least extreme in a way and offers the most potential to all riders. The term XC can be heard in any state or country around the world, but the same isn't true for downhill because not all regions have mountains, but most regions have flats. And even though the term mountain biking makes it sound like a sport that could only be taken place on a mountain, that is far from the truth. So cross-country riding is typically flat, fast, and race-inspired. And the second category, which is downhill, is extreme, high risk, and stylish, also slightly race-inspired. Downhill, slopestyle, freeride, and trail are all related. They all take place on an actual mountain or mountainous terrain. They are all very extreme and involve jumps, highly technical terrain, and style, but there are some key differences. The term downhill usually means riding a park or trail designed and built for fast-flowing riding, utilizing a special bike meant to go, you guessed it, downhill. You won't pedal the bike up the mountain due to the design of the bike. There will be lifts or trucks and shuttles to the top. Sometimes the park will be a ski resort in the winter, and in the summer the ski lifts will be utilized by mountain bikers to take you to the top. The concept has evolved even further into strictly downhill mountain bike parks. There is a form of racing that has come from this, and it will be a short 3 to 5 minute run down a single trail. The fastest wins, and that's pretty straightforward for the term downhill. Slopestyle is all about doing big tricks and riding big jumps. It was a direct evolution of downhill riding. It will usually take place at a downhill park, but the trail will be built for the event. Special dirt jumps and large wooden features will make up a short 30 to 60 second trail run, downhill of course, and whoever has the best tricks and style wins. Typically there will be about 10 jumps in this line. Freeride is just what it sounds like, being free in the terrain around you, finding natural lines and flow in the mountain. This discipline of mountain biking is done best in the mountains because gravity does much of the work to make this happen. An example would be finding a cliff gap or jump to ride that is off the trail, unridden by most, and in fact it's the hardest to explain because of the free form that the rider has to choose from. Just know that to be good at free ride, you should be willing to drop in from the top of a tree or hook yourself over a raw canyon cliff. Best example is Red Bull Rampage. So I'll put enduro and trail in the same category because they are roughly the same thing. Just one is the title for racing and is slightly more intense while racing. Let's first explain trail riding before we talk about enduro. This term is used to describe a style of riding, and it encompasses all of these categories. It's the reason why I still keep it under the umbrella of downhill. The biggest difference is that you'll be pedaling up the mountain you want to ride down. These trails will be more natural and less crowded than downhill parks. Not to mention there will be many more miles of riding and much more diversity. It is closely related to XC, but it is also far away from it because it's mostly based upon style, tricks, and extreme terrain. You'll definitely be putting in a lot of miles, but you'll still be having a lot of fun doing it. Enduro is simply the term for racing trail. The type of racing falls between downhill and trail. It involves 3 to 6 time stages on a mountain, and you'll be responsible for pedaling back up to different starting locations around the trail. And the fastest accumulated time for all stages will be the winner. You'll hear the term trail and enduro used interchangeably due to the influence of similar riding technique, terrain, and gear. To make things more confusing, each one of these categories has a different style bike associated with it, but let's save that for a later date. So if you think having good style day to day is hard, try going out to the trail and not wearing the correct style for that different trail or where you're riding. It's really hard to learn the style of mountain biking or cycling as a beginner, and trust me when I say you probably won't fit in perfectly until you've really learned all the basics and all the little intricacies that the mountain biking lifestyle has to offer. That's not to say that you can't go out and purchase all the gear and all that fancy stuff right away if you're really that into it, but most of us who are beginners are kind of naive to the sport, so we just go out and ride in gym clothing and Nike trainers. But let's talk a little bit about what to wear and why it's important. We all start off a little unsure of what to wear, and there are many learning experiences that get us closer to this styled out rider we want to be. If you're growing organically with the sport, you'll probably go through several awkward phases until you figure it out. Until then, just ride it out, embrace the fashion clash. Fashion and style are strong factors throughout mountain biking and cycling. When starting out, being naive to safety, fashion, and standards isn't part of the game plan. Being on the trail is. But let's talk about some standards everyone should follow when starting out. Wear a helmet. This one is a no-brainer. There really isn't an argument or reason why. If you have to ask, you probably shouldn't be on the trail. Eye protection comes in at a close second, but this one isn't a necessity. It just adds a layer of protection with minimal discomfort. No one will heckle you, and you are not obligated to wear goggles or glasses, but when that low-hanging stick whacks you in your eye, you'll finally understand why. Also, it keeps out a lot of dust. I have a video on this topic already, but please try not to wear Nike trainers out to the trail on your first ride. It might be unavoidable at first if you only have this type of shoe, but make the transition to skate style shoes or MTB specific footwear. Gloves are another option that aren't necessary, but ride long enough or fail enough times and you'll realize their importance. Aside from safety related items, style comes into play pretty quickly. You'll see riders in lycra, tights, moto jerseys, and specialty riding shorts or pants. It's easy to pick out riders who take the sport seriously and want to look the part. If you look like you are hitting the gym, you probably aren't going to turn any heads. But trust me, no one is going to pick you out of a crowd because we are all there to have fun and enjoy nature. Well, most of us anyways. Nutrition is something that evolves over time. If you are serious about riding, learning about nutrition and what makes you stronger will become a thing. Here's what's important per ride. In the beginning, a camelback filled with water and supplies will be your mission. Fast forward a couple months and riding with as little obstruction will be your goal. This should always be your goal if you are riding local. If you are riding a trail system that is a small loop, less than 10 miles, you'll be able to ride with only a bottle and a light snack. If you're riding an epic 20 to 40 miler, ride with planned water stops or with a camelback or 2 bottles. You'll also need a snack to keep you from crashing. Every hour or so, you should ingest 30 to 60 carbs to replenish your system. But what about before the ride? Well, that depends on where you're riding and how much you're riding. A light trail ride in the afternoon really doesn't need any special planning. Be sure to allow about 90 minutes between eating and riding, and you should have the fuel you need, but always pack a snack just in case. An early long ride should take some more thought. Plan to carb load the night before. Meals like pasta really do the trick. The morning of the ride, eat a light breakfast and bring enough snacks and energy chews to get you through the ride. If you were to ride 2 to 3 hours, plan on bringing 2 bars and 2 energy sources. Also bring a drink with sugar and electrolytes. Nutrition is an important part of any intense exercise, but don't think of it as homework. Think of it as a way to be the best version of yourself and figure out what works for you. And the last topic that I want to talk about is how to improve. practicing and failing is the best way to get better. If you aren't falling, you probably aren't pushing hard enough. Now, that doesn't mean go out there and fall because of carelessness, but if you're trying to push yourself and you are healthy and capable of recovering, then you should be trying to push your boundaries. Yet this phrase may not work for everyone based on age, availability, and capability, but the point is to actually practice certain skills that you're weak in. Riding the trail will make you better eventually, but not quite as efficiently or fast as balance training in your driveway, skate park lines, wheeling for 1.5 seconds down your road, and most of the things that will make you look silly in the moment. But don't worry about it. If you are actually true to getting better for yourself, this will pay off and your trail skills will become better and better as you keep practicing. So that's it, friends. That's my advice for beginner mountain biking and anybody out there who is looking to get better or progress with the sport from the insight and experience of myself. All I could do is offer you experience, research, and the fundamentals that I have learned throughout my experiences to help all you friends out there grow and get better. Now, if you liked the video, please hit the thumbs up button. If it helped you out, comment down below and let me know how and why. Share it with your friends and do whatever it takes to get out there and create a better experience for yourself. Don't forget to also go out there and create your own adventure however you can. Spread some positivity, and I will see you on the next video. If you have any ideas of what to cover in the next volume of mountain biking insights, then please let me know because I'd love to hear about them. I'll see you later.